Welcome to the DevReady Podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today, we're fortunate enough to be joined by Guy Brunsdon. We met at a Melbourne Angels event about 2 months ago, I'd say, Guy. Guy and I sort of had a bit of a conversation around products and had a bit of a hit off around, okay, what's the focus in terms of how we think about product, manage products, and really Guy's expertise is in that space. So I really wanted to get him on the podcast to talk about his background, being in the US, Australia, managing product, looking around product design thinking, a number of these different areas. So Guy can share his background, but thank you for joining us, Guy, and welcome to DevReady Podcast.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Anthony. Great to be here.
Happy to have you on.
So Guy, when we met, you spoke a lot around your experience in predominantly product management. Can you paint a bit of a journey on where you've been, where it all started for you, and how you got back to Oz? Because I know you've been back and forth a little bit.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I started my journey back in Oz, and if I fell into networking, and this is the sort of the crux of where it all started, and 20 years in the US. But maybe I'll sort of explain. I fell into networking when the networking guy left one of my first employers, and that sort of directed me where I ended up going. And through that whole journey, I learned a few valuable lessons that, as I fell into product management later on, stuck with me because, they were things that made things register with me.
Learning through experience, yeah.
Well,
Yes.
and I'll sort of illustrate it on the way. Things like jobs theory, how you approach, the customer, providing service, all that sort of stuff. I had certain sort of moments, if you think through the career, that sort of okay, I'd maybe not realise it at the time, but then they made sense later on. So, the valuable lessons I learned along with, about the service model, as I mentioned, and that leads rise to that jobs thing. Simplicity.
Is it?
Yeah, simplicity.
Easier said than done, yeah?
It
Yes.
is. And if I think, when I was back, doing, I'm an old guy, as you can probably tell. I was chief architect of Telstra's internal network back when ATM was the, conventional knowledge and people, and me and a bunch of others were the rogues within Telstra, going down this IP path. And we have darts thrown us and rocks and all sorts of things, but history will determine
Yes.
who won out and that sort of thing. But the important things we had air cover, we had a great culture, we had a great team of people, and a unifying vision for how we got there. Now that's sort of like the thing that came through there, has sort of is a timeless in its effect.
We always need great people, vision, culture. That is, I agree, timeless in effect. It needs to be there.
And simplicity. You might read about Occam's razor. If you're faced with something complex, something simple, a simple one's the way to go. But service and a service model, by the way, because you're thinking about what is the objective of this? What's the job of this? And, I built a network, or we built a network. What's the objective is? You don't do it just for the sake of building a network. You're building it as a service to the business. Okay?
Yep.
So it's the job of that network is to provide a service to connect people and applications, et cetera, et cetera. See, through that lens, things become far more clear on how you define and architect it and so forth.
And think about a product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about product back then. I was a service, and certainly before I fell into product management.
A product generally has some sort of service around it, otherwise it can get a bit lost anyway.
It has to provide value to someone or somewhere.
And as I'll talk about later, it's, I'm a real proponent of this jobs theory thing. So people hire a product to get a job done. You don't buy a product. You don't focus on the product. It's about what it does for you.
Yeah, it's the outcome in the end. Why are we buying this, or why are we using this? Who are we building this for? What are they going to get from it? Why are they going to pay for it? Etc.
That's right.
Yes.
So anyway, back to my journey, and I don't want to sort of over-rotate on that, but I headed to the US in 2001, the whole .com things.
Probably a good time around the US. How was it? What was it like in 2001?
The reason for going to the US, I just, finished that whole Telstra gig. I thought, what am I going to do now? A whole bunch of people that used to work for me went over to the US, and the years prior, they're making squillions, doubling their stock I'm going, well, pick me. I'm going over there. Called one of my mates and said, one of the guys that used to work for me, hey, what's going on? He said, a week later I had a job over there. My wife, we all pack up our house, head over there. And
a week later? Geez, they were hiring quite quickly.
No, it took 4 months. 4 months to go and get a visa for us that, what was it, an L1 visa.
Okay. And there was no remote working back then, I would imagine.
No. I was high tech in my house. I had ISDN.
Yeah, nice.
Okay. ADSL, you weren't doing any remote work back then.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, our stuff's in its container heading across the Pacific. I've been married a year. Fantastic. Let's go over there. What an adventure.
It's an adventure, yes. Married a year.
.com bubble bursts.
As soon as you land? As soon as you dock?
Well, in fact, 3 days before I land, Cisco, and I was working for Cisco, had their first ever layoff.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh, okay.
So, you think a week before I'm going to arrive, they're not sure we're going to put me to run out of seats.
Huh.
And then there's immediately a whole bunch of seats. Of course, then that proposed the whole idea that, we brought you over from overseas, but we've had to lay off all these people. What gives? So anyway, 2001, Andrew, you asked a good question. So 6 months after we arrived, 9/11 happened. So there was a big introduction to, the American culture, which was, great insight.
Geez, 9/11, wow. How long ago was that now? Geez, time flies, doesn't it?
22 years.
22 years. And my wife was stranded across the other side of the country.
Oh, no.
Because flights just stopped and so forth.
Everything stopped.
Everything stopped. But it was kind of surreal. Very sad sort of situation, but very surreal and a very great insight into, patriotism and all these sorts of things that, Anyway, let's not go down that path.
You weren't anywhere near that? Or didn't know anyone there?
No. I know one or two Cisco employees were on one of the planes.
Jeez.
But I didn't know those people.
Oh, okay. So. Yeah, there's always if you're close to it, it's it's a tough one. It's a tough time for everyone. And seeing that, I remember I was in high school. Was it year 11? Yes, it was. And we walked into school, and all of a sudden they put the TVs on and showed us what was going on. I'm thinking, wow. Yeah, surreal from this sort of part of the world, but being there would have been a whole different experience.
And the reactions to it, the fervent patriotism, was like stuff I don't think you'd see in Australia. Not to say it's good or bad. It's just Americans are very patriotic.
It's a different culture.
Yeah.
We digress. Yes,
we digress. It's an interesting digression. Perhaps we should have a beer in front of our sitting here. But anyway, I landed over there, and I'd gone from the customer side, building and providing a service, etc., to the vendor side, and I progressed through wireless networks. This is the time Cisco had made this Aeronet acquisition. Then I got poached from that business unit into storage networking because Cisco had gone and acquired and started a spin-in on fiber channel and storage networking and iSCSI, and I became the business continuity and SAN extension expert, which was great. Learning with so many smart people over there. It was a great learning experience. It was a lot of fun. Then someone came knocking and said, high performance computing. Come over here and help us with this. And, they did another acquisition for InfiniBand. Remember that? Probably not.
InfiniBand? No, never heard of InfiniBand. That went well then, Guy, didn't it?
No, well, it's still around. I don't know. But it allows, really fast intercommunication in clusters. Anyway.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so I became... let's say fluent about computational fluid dynamics and Monte Carlo simulations and high performance computing. Got to go to
I don't even know what some of those things are, but let's continue.
It was a lot of fun. Then anyway, that was VMware. Someone at VMware said, come over here. And that was through the whole virtualization sort of ramping up. I went to this conference.
Fair enough.
And saw this vMotion. You're familiar with vMotion, where you move a VM from one machine to another. And I was just like, my jaw dropped. Yeah. How the hell do you do that? I was gobsmacked. Anyway, so I went to VMware and really became the first network guy over there, and then released a whole bunch of things over there. Started the networking blog, and and then led the tech marketing team, which included the security, the network, the storage, and clustering marketing.
How do you market that without selling the tech?
Well, if you think that in those larger companies, there's this term called technical marketing. So it makes the complex easy to consume. So you create the awareness, you do the presentations at industry conferences and so forth. With a hell of a lot of fun.
Yep.
And so forth. So that's what it's all about.
You probably can be very technical in some of that marketing as well, because the people you're selling to need to understand that.
CTO level, all those,
Precisely. You try and aid the absorption of the products, which are incredibly complex. The marketing people do the awareness, and then it's your job to improve the absorption of that. The learning of it, and get them. And then the checkbox goes on.
So you were there,
I'll buy that.
In the really early days of what's norm now in the cloud computing, everywhere.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, then I went after VMware. I went to VCU, which is Converged Infrastructure vBlocks and so forth, which was just a mash of Cisco, VMware, and EMC stuff, and then on to Citrix, which was Citrix for the Zen server. I headed up the Zen server product management team, and which necessitated me moving to Cambridge, UK, for a year, and it was interesting.
We're in a different world compared to where you were. Completely different.
Oh yeah, it was. Everything's in miniature. If you think in the UK, particularly around Cambridge, it's a university, 800 years old, and that sort of area. It's fascinating, but everything's kind of in miniature. Great experience. But a few issues with Zen server. If you think of the Zen hypervisor, Zen was the most popular by numbers hypervisor in the world, and the reason was AWS used it.
Oh, okay. When they first started.
So if you think of AMIs and so forth, and so forth. Now they've moved off Zen to elsewhere, but back then, I tried to get a billboard on the 101 in Silicon Valley to say the most popular hypervisor in the world is this. Anyway, I wasn't successful in pushing that forward with marketing. Anyway, I came back to the US and then went to a startup doing predictive analytics, which was a lot of fun.
Okay. What startup was that?
It was called Context Relevant. It was in Seattle.
Is it?
And it was renamed sometime later as Versive, and they pivoted from doing Wall Street, recommendations to security and so forth. But it was a lot of fun.
How did you go from networking world to that?
Well, here's the thing.
Bit of a complete.
If you go way back to where I was an undergraduate, I was going to be an actuary. It's a stupid idea that was. And so I always had this little stats thing in my head that I want to be an actuary, and I went and sat the actuarial exam and thought, what a stupid idea that is. Certainly, I wasn't cut out to be that. But the whole analytics side, it's always been with me. So these days, you'd be a data scientist. Then I went back to Cisco called me and said, "Hey, come over here." And startups don't pay very well, so it was that was a pretty easy thing. And I went back to Cisco and looked after tech marketing and product management there. They were getting heavy into the whole hybrid cloud thing. Here's your on-premises private cloud to AWS and Azure, and we have this product. Except, another lesson learned. They didn't do really the right product discovery. It was a very engineering-driven thing. It was a bit of ahead of its time, but it was built on the premise of a layer 2 connection between places, and you're going to move VMs. That's never going to happen. Okay. So I was given the after a big reorg, I was given the job of a lot of people work go and so forth. I was given the job to kill it. Another little sort of checkbox in your experience.
That's a fun job.
Oh,
how many people?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah,
hundreds.
Yeah.
Right. It's I was there were 2 people left in this business: head of engineering, head of product management. I was that one.
Yep.
And everyone sort of came under. Yeah. So anyway, it was an ugly time, but that shit happens over there with some sort of regularity. I got left with a whole bunch of products, and then taken to another team, which is the data center business unit, and ended up owning a few products over there and responding. Back in the day, we're very friendly with VMware. Then we became arch enemies, and I'd sort of tackle that whole sort of issue in terms of what we do with VMware.
Okay.
So great learning experiences. Then 2018, we decided we're going to come back to Australia. Family came back.
Interesting timing to come back to Australia. Come and land and get locked down. Anyway,
yeah. Well, I was doing the Trans-Pacific back and forth every month until 2020. I was about to head off to Barcelona for Mobile World Congress because I was in the telco space in the data center. Our products, about $1 billion of revenue per year, doing the worldwide telco and the web scalers, which is pretty big, but dwarfed by the whole enterprise side, which is another $4 billion. So had that Mobile World Congress, it stopped. I was stuck in Australia, and that's it. So kept the early morning stuff going for another year, and anyway.
They're getting up at the crack of dawn, or before that,
or staying up very late till 2 a.m. to make these important meetings. That was you're either it's Europe, US, or Australia, and of course we're always the
one that gets put on. You can join in, Guy. It's only 2 o'clock in the morning over there. It'd be fine.
Yes, you're dead right.
Yes.
So anyway, that's where I decided to go out and do the whole product management consulting thing. I got this company now, Sazoma. I've done a few contracts, done a bit of non-executive director board work as well, getting into long duration energy storage, which is certainly
interesting, very interesting.
Interesting sustainability, and certainly a new sort of area that I've learned about.
It's a bit of a background there.
Sorry, I've given you a lot of time in the background.
That's all right. But in terms of background, my key takeaway is a lot of experience managing probably big product, corporate product, high-end product, selling to B2B predominantly, I would imagine.
It's all B2B.
Yeah, all B2B. Long buying cycles, big sales contracts, all that sort of area if anyone's thinking B2B. So that would be probably my takeaway from that. But when you look at product from that perspective, we've got a big B2B play, corporate, managing that. What's some of the challenges when launching products? I suppose it might have been easier in the US than it was in Oz. I'm not sure if that is correct, but I just want to get your thinking on that in terms of launching new product within a corporate entity. How does that sort of sit? That's one question. And then two, what worked in that journey?
Well, I can tell you about stuff that didn't work as well.
Like the positive first. We'll get to the work after.
Yeah, look. When you're talking about B2B in a company like Cisco, always it's not like you think. Everyone talks about product-led growth. It's not product-led growth. It's sales-led growth.
Yes.
And Cisco had an awesome sales machine and a channel to get stuff out there.
The reality of every business, though.
Yeah, to a very
most businesses. Yeah, 95% of them. ChatGPT might be in another world, but which is more product led right now.
Yeah,
but most businesses have a sales team, a unit that's converting, talking about their product in a number of ways. So I'd imagine that's most of the businesses that are out there with a product behind them.
Yes, I would agree. Certainly companies of that size and so forth, the Cisco, VMware, and so forth. You did have your fanboys of certainly, and Cisco and VMware certainly did the bottoms up growth by using certifications, education at the bottom level to sort of bring that sort of growth and preference up through the bottom layers. So you're quite interesting from that perspective. But it did rely upon technical marketing people to go out and evangelize. This is how it works, and this is helping people learn, which is a bottoms up thing again. Bottoms up, top down, both approaches to help that absorption. I'm very much a sort of an advocate for that whole journey where you have the awareness, the learning, the buying, the usage, and so forth. And there's variations that, and every one of those stages has an off ramp that if you don't do it correctly, you're not going to get the win, not going to get the purchase.
Correctly. So, was correctly mean to you? Tough question. Correctly. You mentioned if you don't do it correctly, what does that mean?
Did I say correctly?
You did, yeah.
Okay.
Good luck trying to answer that question.
Okay, if you don't do it well, put it to an acceptable degree. You don't get those aha moments when you're telling customers about the products, whatever they are. and how they can use it in that call to action about they want to go to the next stage. So it has to be acceptable, and that's what you're full time, and you have a swarm of people doing this for specific products and solutions.
Yes.
Where some of the difficulties are, a place like Cisco, VMware, all those places are very siloed. So you have a product that may compete with another product and so forth, and you say, okay, well, customer says, but hang on a sec, you told us about this.
Explain that to me and how that works. And why that happens.
It's just the size of the organizations. Yes. And certainly, my last thing I tried to do at Cisco actually was to try and, I was in the telco space. 5G was on everyone's radar, and the next big thing, of course, 5G. Now, Cisco had 3 business units that spanned the 5G space. My business unit that I was in, data center. So you have Nexus switches, ACI, all this sort of stuff you might use for packet cores. Okay. Then there was the service provider business unit that had the wide area network, the routers, segment routing, MPLS, all that sort of stuff. And then there was another one which dealt with the orchestration piece, which we had a product called NSO. Okay. Now, I was perhaps foolishly tried to think,
bring them together.
Cisco, let's try and not join the business units together, but have a coherent story that spanned them all. And it was difficult. They say because of business units are all driven from I've got to sell my product, and that's how they're measured. But try and join this together and sort of let's hold hands and kumbaya. It was particularly difficult.
At that scale.
Just at that scale, you walk into it and say, it just makes sense. But
each of those departments would have been a decent sized business on its own, let alone 3 of them in Cisco. But I'm guessing that all originated from probably acquisitions early on, and they've remained siloed from that point.
Yes, some acquisitions. So certainly the orchestration piece, which was NSO, was an acquisition. The others were not. I was part of a few of the spin-ins, actually working on those things. Which Cisco had this thing called spin-in. It's set aside. Their Catalyst, their compute, their storage networking.
So that would be
and the Nexus stuff was all spin-ins.
Little bit on the side, invest in a little bit. Once it gets to something scale, bring it back in, build a team around it. Is that what you mean by spin-in?
Spin-in. These people, there was the same people every time. They just had a knack with incredibly smart engineers and so forth doing this, and they'd
spin it in R&D department, effectively.
Yeah. So, and it was the place to be within those organisations. It was great.
Well, they're most fun, right? X amount of budget, go play. Yeah, create something new. Were you ever a part of those groups, the spin-in sort of groups?
I was, I was the first one, yes. So not the first one, the second one. Yeah, the storage networking, and the other ones came in later.
Be quite keen to dig in on that, actually, Guy. What was it like being a part of that? Was it really product-led, or was it engineered-led? Or was it customer-led?
Were you solving what problem were you solving?
Where did it start from?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there were these founders of these particular things, and they were serial ones. They just knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
They'd research what the problems were themselves.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And say, come up with the idea.
So you'd have a core big problem that you're trying to solve clearly for a size of business.
And they would do that. And then they create this little startup, and then they'd hire the right people to execute. Okay. And that
same people,
problem space to solution space to they'd execute. Often it was the execution piece. When you came into these businesses, you were there to execute, and they were relentless in executing. They were great, but the original problem had already been nutted out.
Okay.
And the opportunity, the problem that came from that problem had been nutted out. So, but these guys never missed in terms of. But when you came into these, you were you're part of the execution machine.
Never missed is only big statement. Yeah. So what did you see within them that got them to never missing? I'm sure some missed, but like you saw success in their own.
If you think Catalyst, what do you think Cisco? All the things, they're the people buying Catalyst. UCS Compute, Nexus switches, MDS 9000 fiber channel switches. All these things have never missed. Okay, so what was the key thing?
So did they never miss because they were designed first, and if they weren't solid, they never went ahead? So then the only things that were executed were the good ones?
No, you're asking, was there any scrap heap?
Yeah. In a roundabout way.
No scrap heap. No scrap heap. And since the Cisco, you think AMD have acquired their latest product. Okay, so they didn't go to Cisco this time around. The thing was very engineering led, but it was rooted in. They're just awesomely great engineers. The head honcho of this, lots of patents to their names and so forth. You just want to hang around these people just to bask in their glow and expertise. But they could nut it out, discover what real problems were, and determine there were real markets for these, and that they could, it's viable and usable, and people willingness to pay. So they, check off all the boxes. They had that knack. Okay, and it's not some magical thing. They were just very good at what they did.
There's no magic in it, but you need to have a big problem to solve. Someone's got to be willing to pay for it. I laugh when I sit down and have a coffee with a founder that doesn't want to share anything because they're scared of losing their IP, doesn't want to talk to anyone, and I say all the best, because it happens quite a bit where people are scared of sharing, talking about the problems, talking about how they're thinking about solving it. But that's where really the magic happens. Like, you need to be talking to your market, and I'm sure those guys didn't go about just hiding willy-nilly and not having conversations with people and doing some R&D at the front.
The ideas need to
correct.
So the ideas need to evolve by talking to people and understanding. That's how we see that happening. Yeah,
absolutely. You need to spend enough time in problem space to sort of understand it before you head into solution space. But they were expert at both of those. So you can't just jump straight to solution space and say, there's this great idea. Is there a problem around that fits it? No.
So in terms of you today, product, technology strategy, what does that mean? What's your core focus? You talked about jobs to be done at the beginning. If someone's on the frame of looking at let's look at the problem space, they're looking at a problem, they might consider a jump into a solution. How might they back test that? Because I find that most people can get really heavy into a solution quite quickly.
Yes.
What do you recommend there? It's easy to jump into solution because our mind goes to that spot where human beings problem. What do we do about it? So that's generally where we go. So how do we stop that, slow down to speed up, as you might say?
You hit it on the head there, Andrew. I look, when my wife or vice versa throws each other a problem, you're immediately trying to solve it. I mean, as you say, it's a human tendency. You have to nut out. There's a problem of the nature. And I think there's a few methodologies that, and I call them maybe disciplines, help you in sorting that out.
Discipline is a fair point because you have to be disciplined in it. Well,
yes. And I find that whole discovery process, enlightening, because that's where you've got get those aha moments. Find out these things. I find it quite rewarding when you can actually do it properly. Look, quite frankly, and I've done it badly on occasions too. I think
it's perfect. There's no direct science to this. You're creating product. Yes, there's methodologies you can follow, but doesn't mean you're going to be led down the garden path either, are you?
Yeah, doing that discovery, you need to have a few things in your favour. Doing them face to face, I think, is always advantageous if you can meet with someone, because you get that sort of thing. They'll tell you more when you're face to face versus online. I had one thing that I regret, just a complete mess up. It was only a year or so ago, where I was interviewing a customer, and COVID lockdown, you had no alternative, and the audio was terrible, and I was trying to sort of concentrate, listen to it, and I was going, I ended up spending so much time trying to understand and interpret what was said because the audio was that missed the whole how the thing was flowing. So I should have cut it off short and said, okay, can we just find a different room or something like that? Or whatever. And you learn from that. But the thing is, getting customers.
I've had podcasts that's gone like that before, which isn't ideal. We have. Yep. We'll go back. Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not fun because it. Exactly. So, and, I made the wrong decision. I sort of kept it going. I thought I should have done that. But it's having the right circumstances so you can get the free flow of ideas, understand their problems and so forth is just vitally important. So that whole discovery thing is super important. And I might cite the reasons why I think it is even more so today is because you see, and depends on whose statistics you use, 40% to 80% of products fail.
Yeah, it depends on what statistics you use, yes.
What
does failure mean, though? Is that
precisely, what does failure mean? It doesn't meet expectations. It kind of works, but not where they sort of set the goals or whatever. Okay, and more than half of digital transformations fail. Now, digital transformation is sort of more encompassing than just products.
You think why would be a question on digital transformation when you have
it's just digitizing process.
More than half, which should be possibly.
It should be really.
Well,
maybe.
It's digital transformation. It's not something you can go and toss over to Jim and Sally over in IT. Hey, just work this out, go and fix it. It's far bigger because there's organisational change.
There's the buy-in, there's the change. And that organisational change, big it is, depending how big it is, can be the biggest roadblock to that.
Culture training.
Exactly. I mean, you got resistance to change because people have done this all way, and you go and say, "Oh, we're going to change everything." But there's two sort of main. They talked about digital transformation. There's sort of two main things. There's the optimization of what you're currently doing, and you might create platforms and so forth. And then there's the new products and new markets effort.
Yeah, that's a different.
You try on two things parallel, and the ultimate is to do both. And part of this is which path do you take? Do you take the path along the optimization to get to that?
One's incremental improvement. One is a leap. Yes. But the leap can be the wrong direction, wrong product, and that's probably the bigger chance of failure. And that's maybe why. A question for you. You've been around corporate for a long time. Would a corporate generally back that incremental change because it's safer? Less chance of failure?
Probably depends on
incremental. Incremental. What would you increment on?
I'm talking about. We take one manual process and we copy it and we put it into a web platform and automate a couple of things, and we slowly keep improving that. Or let's go to a whole new market, create a new product which cuts off this whole division of our business. Obviously, there's a bigger risk in that one. So do we find... Where do you find that generally goes?
Well, there's a book I read recently. There's called Future Ready. It deals with this whole process.
It's like the DevReady, but just more future-based.
There you go. I think somewhat similar in some ways. Future Ready, and it articulated 4 pathways, 4 strategies, and you could take either of those. You could land yourself there, go directly from here in the bottom left-hand corner, if you think a 2x2 matrix sort of arrangement. Stick from the bottom left and then jump up to the top right. That's reinvention and do everything in one sort of thing. You could take the internal path where you sort of sort out and optimize your internal things and create platforms that then you can build things. Or you can take that other one, which is external and really about customer experience. Look, I wouldn't like to judge which way is the best. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. To your point, though, you would think, and this sort of comes through when you develop your products, incremental, do one thing well before you sort of try and boil the ocean. Don't try and boil it. Do everything, you sprinkle pixie dust everywhere. That's never going to get there. Do one thing well to a point where everyone thinks you're doing it. That's great. Then go to the next thing. The next thing. Gets the next thing. That process, I think, works in doing products. And
if you're going to start just talking outside of corporate and you're in a startup and you're looking to build a product, yes, you must do one thing well. You can incrementally improve and evolve it because you've got customers to do that with. You've got revenue to build upon. Would agree with that. Try not to do
you build you get mavens that advocate your product. If you do one thing really incredibly well, you might be a limited market, but then you get that advocacy that spreads.
You can start to expand from there.
Correct.
Understood.
Yeah. So
there's plenty to think about there.
Oh yeah, and you came back to the discovery. Why I think it's important is that if you go to the number one cause, and it's not just me saying this, McKinsey and others say this, the number one cause of digital transformation failures is fuzzy definitions. Can't agree.
Fuzzy
on.
definitions.
Fuzzy
Another
definitions.
reason why DevReady exists. Fuzzy definitions.
Yeah.
But that can be fuzzy definitions in the eyes of the stakeholders, right? As well, like how do you communicate across stakeholders, and that's important. And getting everyone clear and on the same page. Not that easy. The bigger the business is, the more challenging.
Getting the clarity.
Yes, very much so. Clarity is very important because, at the end of the day, you want some sort of vision as well to come out of this. A vision. And the visions become those rallying points that everyone says, that's where we're going. Okay, the clarity about that helps people. It needs you. They become empowered as well to get there. Okay, that's the destination.
Yes. Well, you can make decisions on a vision if everyone's agreed to it, and it's easier to make decisions that are going to serve that vision. If the vision's fuzzy, then how does one make a good decision to get to a vision that no one's clear on? Good luck.
And another thing, it comes into that jobs theory as well.
Yes.
One of the key reasons products, go off course, it's all related, is people don't agree on the problem.
Or the solution either.
Well, if you don't agree with that on the problem,
the prioritization of everything, it could be anything. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't find agreement on a problem, how big is that problem then?
Yeah, it's just not explained well, potentially. A few different avenues on that one.
The problems can be simple, they can be complex.
Of course.
Yeah.
And your world you're probably in and been a part of is very complex.
Well, certainly the
challenges and problems. Yes. Yeah. Huh.
And I actually wrote a systems thinking is incredibly important. To try and sort of piece this out, sort of understand problems, how things work when it comes to this. Certainly one flavour of jobs to be done has a very similar sort of methodological systems thinking, but it's pretty similar. It's about job maps. And we can talk about all that sort of stuff. But thinking about things in systems.
What's a job map?
Okay, if you think of a job, okay, you're doing something. I'm going to, let's say, turn on my laptop.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm only just sitting right in front of me here.
It's right in front of you. That's the first thing that popped in my mind.
So I have to go and, it's job map. Well, to do that job, I have to, what's all the elements of that I want to make sure? Well, I want to make sure all the steps, and it's probably a bad example, but I'm going to make sure it's charged.
It's got to be charged.
I'll be able to find it, and it's part of it, locating it, turning it on. Where's the button? Just make sure it's in that, etc., etc. Probably a bad example because it's a bit simplistic. When you say go and buy, maybe you're buying goods from a store. How do I want to go and buy something or other? Part of that job would be, okay, how do I find out about it? How do I purchase it? How do I go to the store? Okay, there's going to be multiple parts to optimize that. I might go to Amazon. I might just go down the street or whatever. Things of that. Thinking through that whole, having the discipline to think, it's not just one piece of it, but thinking across an expansive range. You've got to think of you as a job executor, or that person as a job executor. What do they need to do? It might be, define, locate, prepare, confirm, execute, monitor, all those sorts of things go into the job. And this is why I think, while you may not use this in every time, it's a good exercise to think about in terms of the discipline, to make sure you're thinking about everything. And you think about the person who does the execution of that job. As well as there's, related jobs, so the emotional stuff. Do I feel good about this and so forth? Things of that nature. There's a purchase decision maker type of roles. What are the outcomes that they want? Okay, particularly if it's B2B type thing.
Stakeholders, yeah, correct.
Yeah, exactly. B2B sort of thing. You're going to have a person who does the job might be an operations person. We've gone off my example, but onto those sorts of generalized sort of things. Purchase decision maker. Then there's the consumption change jobs. How do I install or purchase? How do I receive? How do I install? How do I manage? And all those sorts of things that you. So you've got to have the discipline, and each one of those You want specific outcomes. Now, it means you have a whole range of things. Okay, I want to make sure this is easy to install. If you need to go and hire someone to install it, so they might make it dead in the water, this product. Okay, managing updates. All those things for a consumption chain. You don't want to ignore those things because they're all outcomes that you want to consider.
The joys of SaaS products where we don't have to do that anymore. Not the customer anyway.
Well, there you go.
Takes that job away from the customer, right? So that makes it easier to consume.
For sure.
Yes.
So they're the sorts of things that, if we just wanted to pivot into that job stuff, the thing that, and I mentioned in my opening preamble that, a couple of things stuck in terms of jobs, and so forth. There was this thing by Theodore Levitt from Harvard Business School that was then popularized by Clayton Christensen. It's sort of, you don't go to the store to buy just because you want a 1/4-inch drill. It's because you want a 1/4-inch hole. So you're hiring an object to do a job and you have multiple things. Now, the job you're looking to get done may not be just to drill a 1/4-inch hole. It might be to hang a picture. In which case, you're then saying, how do I hang a picture effectively? It might take in other products to do that, and then you might be optimizing and so forth. So that's it. It's essentially a lens you want to look through because, invariably, and I certainly witnessed this myself in my job, so there's a tendency to just concentrate on your product. Every problem requires my product. But hang on, you've got to stand back and think. What are you trying to get done? And a lot of those jobs that you want to get done are enduring. And you can provide, if I think through my history, I've got various networking technologies. I want to provide a network service, for instance. But there's an evolution of technologies that I can apply to just make it better and better. Okay? So I think using these sorts of models to think, or a lens, if you like, to think about how you approach the discovery process and the problem definition process, spending time in that problem space is really important because, as you point out, Andrew, you can just gravitate to that solution thing far too easily.
Quite easily, yes. You can. But and that whole, I have a drill to drill a hole has been used a number of times, but it goes into a number of areas, right? So I like someone, I heard it once when they went all the way down to, why is a guy drilling a hole in the wall to put up a picture so his wife's happy, and then that makes him happy. There's a lot to it if you keep digging. And
draw the tree of all your particular reasons. Okay,
and then don't focus on just that one tiny individual aspect of it, because that's not the job.
That's not the total job.
Yeah, it could have context in multiple situations, but which might have context, product A, product B, product C to get a certain job done. But the thing is, you're hiring that to get something done.
Yes.
So it's all nuance and so forth, but important to look through that lens, I believe, when you're doing discovery. Otherwise, you might latch on to, here's my product. Don't you love it? Isn't it shiny? Rather than stand back and say, what are they really trying to get done? What's the outcome they're looking for? What
are they looking for at the end?
So it's a disciplined way of thinking.
Before we jumped into that, you mentioned something about systems thinking. I'll probably cut you off a little bit. Explain your thinking there. Anthony's a very systems oriented thinker.
Okay.
But we'll have to get what that means to you, really.
So I've been told.
So you've been told, yes.
Well, you had a guest on recently talk about design thinking, right? And design thinking talks about, systems thinking, and that's the upfront piece. Let's pull it apart. Okay, in a systems thinking way. Okay, it's important because, as you said before, some people just jump straight to the ideation solutioneering phase and don't do that upfront thing. But it's in there. It's clearly in that design thinking to have that upfront. So you actually narrow the funnel give you context for where you're actually looking. Okay, so what is systems thinking? Now, the sort of model that is used is you have these distinctions of put a box around something rather. Within those things, I have particular systems, these entities, okay, which might lead to additional systems behind it. So I might abstract some system behind it. Okay, and then you have relationships between these. You might have causal loops within the relationships, and you have perspectives. So Andrew's perspective, Anthony's perspective, Guy's perspective on this might be different because they're looking upon that system in a different way for a different purpose. So you start to pull, it's really pulling it apart, making sense, and saying, okay, I'll get this system for, pick something, buying a car, whatever it is. But the person selling the car and the person buying the car and my wife, who's the approver, might have different perspectives on this. Okay, so it means you can pull it apart and then you can optimize certain parts of it once you see it all laid out. And I think we all did computer science in the day, right? Is that?
We all did, yes.
Yeah, so you probably learned it sort of by, osmosis to an extent. You do.
Yes.
You create a function or a subroutine to go off and do something. Well, that's part of the system. Hook it all together. So it's a way of doing it that you can apply to a multitude of situations. Okay, and when you've got complex systems, you can apply it up front, and that job map was another way of doing it. How does this? How do I go from A to B to C in terms of the A to Z of this particular job? It could be a system.
Can be a system built. It's just in effect, it can be a workflow, right? What are the steps in the flow? Not just considering. I think probably where you can get some real value is what you've leaned on a little bit. All right, there's once you get to solution mode, there's the piece that the solution's doing, but there's all this other stuff around it, which a lot of people don't consider. And that might even be from a SaaS product. Just to pretend we're building a SaaS product that's a CRM. All well and good, there's a million of them on the market, but how do we onboard people into our CRM? A lot of people don't think about it because they just think product first. They're not thinking about onboarding, not thinking about training, not thinking about how do we support this, and not holistically looking at the whole end-to-end as what the customer needs. So that's where I see the value of that whole job to be done / workflow / what are all the systems, the parts, the pieces.
Precisely.
They're going to really make this work.
It's not just considering one little element of it, because you're going to have all, even, the selling, is your channel in place, the distribution, all those bits and pieces.
Yes, the business value canvases are good little tools for things like to think about other pieces.
Sitting over in my library over there.
They're great little tools because they get you thinking on all the areas, not just what your main focus is. And I think we get lost in what we're comfortable with as humans. We're comfortable with this. Let's just focus on this. But there's all these other parts that really have to be considered. Pretty good. In terms of your direction, so consulting, what sort of stuff are you doing at the moment? What are you working on?
Well, actually, I am getting a little bit more into from a personal study point of view into security.
Yeah, it's a big area now.
It is.
It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's getting bigger and bigger. I have been on the periphery of security for a long time, and I say on the periphery because.
It would have been a part of a lot of the stuff
being in networking and VM, it's there.
Networking, you kind of you don't do it. I mean, security people say, well, it's not really security, but I've given presentations at conferences on security as it relates to storage networking and other things. So I've been on the periphery of things, but I haven't got my certification and so forth. So I'm actually looking at that at the moment. I went and did a workshop last week in Canberra at this cybersecurity conference, and I figured, I know.
Was it riveting stuff in Canberra? Yes.
Well, there's a lot of people that love it there.
Yes, good, very good. I know there are. There's a cool market there that would love everything.
People are polarized about that. Anyway, look, I find it. I've always found it fascinating. I've probably got about a dozen security books.
The fascination part is more that white hacker where let's try and break stuff and hack it. So that part is fascinating. I think for me anyway. Yeah.
Oh, look, and I think it's only getting. It's just every day that the whole need for cybersecurity. You've got the sort of tensions in the world and so forth. So, state-sponsored hacking and so forth. I think. Anyway.
Until
I thought
AI
I'd
starts
double-click
hacking,
on it.
until AI starts hacking all our systems, then we're in all sorts of problems. But anyway, I digress. Guy, thank you for joining us on the DevReady Podcast. Plenty to take away from that. I think people can sort of frame out where we are, thinking of solution. Let's start at problem. Spend quite a bit of time up front there. Think about what we're actually delivering. Those jobs components, they're quite good. The business value canvases can take you outside of just product and look at all the angles of it as well. So really appreciate you coming on. But thanks for coming on the DevReady Podcast, Guy.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome.
It's been great.